Welcome back, everyone. It is cold outside, even a little too cold for this guy. Well, there's just a handful of things left to do to finish up the bathroom, so let's get started where I left off in the last episode with the closet. The first thing to do in here is to cover up this hole. Now, the reason I put it in here was so I have access to the bathtub faucet in case there was ever a problem. Now, I have a hot and a cold shut-off valve in here to shut the water off if I ever need to change out a faucet washer, or if I ever have to change out the faucet altogether, I can. I just can unscrew these two unions and pop the faucet out and put in a new one. But I don't want to leave this hole open like that just because something in the closet could fall down in here and then probably be lost forever. So I've got this. This is a plastic access panel, and this is a spring fit design. I really like these. There's another design out there which has a frame around it, and they're nice, but they're kind of hard to get the panel back out of the frame once they've been installed. It takes a screwdriver or a quarter or something with a blade edge on it, and when I do it, I usually damage the panel a little bit, so I don't go with those anymore. I go with this design. Another thing I like about them is they are paintable. You don't have to go with the factory color, or if you have wallpaper in your house, you can wallpaper over these too. So this is what it looks like. I'll paint it up. I painted it to match the wall so it blends all together. And on the back, this is the spring clip design like I was telling you about, and it goes in like this. Spring clip first on the top, lift up a little bit, and the panel drops down into place, and it covers up the hole really nicely. And if you ever have to get back into it, just gently lift up at the bottom, and the panel pops right out. Now I want to get the transition between the floor and the wall looking a lot better than what it does now. And I'm going to do it with this stuff, some vinyl Cove base. There's a bit of a trick to getting this stuff to wrap around the corner just right, and I'll show you what it is. First, I get one end of the Cove base tight to where it's supposed to be. Then I press it tight into the corner and make a tiny little mark with my knife. Then I flip the piece upside down and I bring over the factory edge and I line it up with the mark I just made with my knife. Make sure this is nice and square to the rest of it. And then I just take my knife and I gently go across, making just a very minimal mark. I don't want to cut all the way through this. Just scoring it lightly. Okay. So when I bend it over, I get a nice crease like that. Then the last step, I just cut a little V notch out of the bottom, like that. And then it goes right tight into the corner to make sure it fits. I apply 2 beads of Cove base adhesive, 1 inch from each edge, and I press the molding tight to the wall and into the corner. I continue on with the next piece, doing the same thing as before, marking, notching, gluing, and pressing it into place. It looks really good. This closet could really use some shelving. So what I used to do years ago was make my own shelving out of 3/4 inch finished grade plywood, and I did that because it was strong and it looked good. But I'd say about 10 years ago, I had a tenant who had a 3-year-old, and he got a hold of one of those colorful cigarette lighters. He went into the bathroom and he caught the toilet paper on fire. Now, I don't know if you know this, but toilet paper is incredibly flammable. So the fire went up the wall, it hit my wood shelving, and that's what really accelerated the fire to the point of, $12,000 insurance claim. Now, I don't blame the kid for catching the house on fire. Like I said, he was 3 years old. And those cigarette lighters do look like they are toys because they're so colorful. And I remember when I was a kid in the 80s, there were news stories of kids getting a hold of cigarette lighters like that one and catching things on fire. And I believe that's what prompted the safety lock on that type of cigarette lighter. So no more wood shelving, and what I use now is this stuff. This is a wire shelving. I believe Closet Made makes this stuff. It's available at most big box hardware stores. And the shelving plus all the parts that make it work as a system, it's a little more expensive than making your own shelving out of plywood, but nice thing about it is it doesn't burn, and it's a project that you can get done in just a few hours. Just doing a scan here with my Wallabot to make sure where the studs are. Here's one right there. And another one right there. This bar is the first piece that goes in the closet, and their holes are marked 8 inches on center, but my studs are 16 on center, so I'm going to use this hole and that hole. Now this bar is too big to fit in the closet. I want it to be about 24 inches long, and I took a measurement from the stud on the left of the closet, and where I want it to end is 5 inches over, and I want 24 inches from here to the end. So those are the two places where I need to cut, and I'm going to do that outside with a right angle grinder. The next pieces that go in are these slotted rods called standards, and they can't be mounted any farther away than 4 inches from the edge of the shelf. Now the shelf isn't going to be any wider than this hang track, which is cut to 24 inches. So hopefully if I measure here over 4 inches, if I get it right on center, I'll be able to, I'm hoping I'll be able to hit the same stud that that screw is put into. I got really lucky with that one. Let's see what the other side is going to be like. Wow, I think I was right on the edge of the stud with that one. Well, if there wasn't a stud there, the manufacturer did say you could attach these things with toggle bolts. Now the shelf brackets can go in. They just go into the slot and lock into place like that. And the nice thing about this system is it's adjustable, so if you don't like your shelf where it is, you can take the bracket out, move it up, lock it back in place again. The shelving comes in different widths. This one is 16 inches wide. I've seen it as small as 12 and as large as 24 inches. I wanted the 24 inches for the bathroom because it holds the most amount of stuff, but because of supply chain problems, there just wasn't any to be had right now. So maybe in the future I'll be able to get some and change out a couple of the shelves in there, but for now we got the 16 and it'll still work. So cutting this stuff is pretty easy. I can cut it with a hacksaw or maybe the right angle grinder, but the one thing that I found that works the easiest and is the cleanest is this, just a simple pair of bolt cutters. Just a couple of snips and the shelf is cut to size. These rods stick out just a little bit and they're a little bit rough from the bolt cutters. So the manufacturer makes these rubber end caps that just slip over the ends like that. That way when the shelving gets installed in the closet, the walls don't accidentally get scratched up. The closet is now complete, and I think it turned out pretty well. That's it for today. Tomorrow we'll be back and install the bathroom shower door. Ready to go? Come on. Good morning. I got all the parts out of the box for the shower door, and I just went over the instructions to make sure there wasn't any major differences that I didn't know between this brand of shower door and the other ones I've installed before in the past. And it looks like there's a couple little things that are different, but nothing too major. It's all pretty much the same. So I am going to get started here as soon as I'm done petting the fur baby with the shower door.
First, I get the measurement for the bottom track. Then I transfer that measurement minus ½ an inch for the side rails. With my speed square, I extend the line on the side and the bottom of the track. I cut the track to size with my right angle grinder. Normally I would do this outside, but cutting aluminum doesn't throw sparks, so I don't feel like I'm accidentally going to burn the house down. Then I take off the burrs with a fine-tooth file and wipe away the leftover magic marker with some denature alcohol on a paper towel. This brand of shower door has a nylon door guide that gets cut 3/8 of an inch shorter than the bottom track. Then it gets slid onto the track along with the door guide. The sill of the bathtub gets wiped clean from any dirt, grease, or dog hair. Then, a thick bead of caulk gets applied to the bottom of the door track and is pressed into place, making sure it is centered front to back and side to side. To make sure the track doesn't move while the caulking is drying, it's held in place with 4 strips of masking tape. A little bit of caulking got squeezed out the bottom, but it's easily cleaned up with a dry paper towel. Now, the side rails get leveled and temporarily put in place with some masking tape on both sides of the tub. All 6 of the holes in the side rails get marked with a pencil, then the rails come out, and the 6 holes get drilled with a 3/8 inch drill bit. The wall anchors are now pushed into place, and both tracks are attached with the center screw first, followed by the bottom and top screws secured with rubber door bumpers. I get the measurement for the top track and transfer it over. Just like the bottom track, I extend the line over with the speed square, cut it off with a grinder, file off the burrs, and it's ready to be set in place. This model door has 2 T-clips that get installed to keep the track from accidentally getting lifted off the side rails. The hole gets marked with a marker, the clip gets removed, and a 3/16 inch hole gets drilled. Everything goes back together, and the T-clips get permanently attached with a screw on both sides of the top track. Now I move the door guide to the exact center of the bottom track, drill a 3/16 inch hole, and secure it with a screw. It's been a few hours now, and the caulking is dry enough that I can remove the masking tape. The outside shower door gets a towel bar screwed on, along with the track rollers on the inside of the door. Then the inside door gets track rollers installed on the back side. The inside shower door gets temporarily set inside the bathtub, while the outside door gets hung first on the track. Then I step inside the bathtub and hang the inside door. Finally, I apply a thin bead of clear silicone caulking along the side rails and along the bottom track.
There's just one last thing to do in here, and that is to install the shower head. I'm wrapping some TFE tape on the threads, and 5 or 6 times around is all I need to keep it from leaking. And you see I'm going in a clockwise direction. That way, when I screw this into the wall, this tape will stay tight to the threads and I won't have a leak. Now, if I wrapped it in the opposite direction, this stuff would unravel as I screwed it in, and I'd have a big leak. I'm just tightening this on by hand because if I used a pipe wrench on it, it would leave marks on the finish, and I don't want that to happen. So they do make a tool called a strap wrench, and this is what it looks like. This is a rubber loop which goes around the pipe, and then it gets tightened down, and then it works like a wrench after that. I have owned 3 of those before, and none of them have ever worked. So I keep on buying them, hoping that one day I'm actually going to get one that does what it's supposed to do. So I'm just about to the end here. It's getting really tight. Okay, gonna get that nice and centered there. Okay, that looks good. Let's go check for some leaks. I don't see any leaks, so that's good. All right, I guess we're done. So Caesar, would you like a shower or a bath? Neither one. Okay. Well, I won't see him for a few more hours, so let's go work on the bathroom sink. Wow, is that heavy? I got this because it's made out of plywood and not that wimpy particle board stuff. I was really lucky to find this on the clearance aisle, which made it super cheap. It just has a couple of marks on the front, but you can barely see them. The inside has a lot of space, and it has 2 soft closed drawers. But the best thing about it is the color. It really matches the gray tones on the floor and the wall. I've run into my first problem, and these water lines are just a little too far forward for me. I'd rather they were farther back in the cabinet, about maybe an inch from the back. That way they don't get caught up on stuff that gets stored under the sink. Another thing is, if I left the water lines the way they were, this hot would actually come up underneath one of the drawers, and that would just be impossible to work with.
First, I shut the water off in the basement. Then, I relieve the pressure in the pipes by turning on the faucet in the bathtub. I only have 6 inches of room to work under the floor of the cabinet, so I cut the pipes off low to the floor. Then, I add 2 compression rings, 2 elbows, and crimp everything together. Next, I extend the pipes over, crimping those connections, and extending the pipes up, along with the final crimping. Now, I take a measurement between the 2 pipes, and transfer that number over to the cabinet. I finish up by drilling out the 2 holes with a 5/8 inch Forstner drill bit.
Now for the next problem. A few episodes back, when I was putting the tile on the walls in here, I was complaining about how crooked my floors are, and that crookedness has come back to haunt me. This cabinet is sitting flat on the floor and tight to the wall on the bottom, but at the top, I'm about an inch away from the wall. And I don't want that because things could fall down behind there and get lost forever, as well as water could get back there and slowly rot my cabinet out. So to get the cabinet tight to the wall, I have to raise the bottom front up by about 1/2 inch. And I don't want that gap there either. So to get rid of that gap, I have to cut a taper on both sides of the cabinet, starting at a 1/2 inch in the back, going to 0 in the front.
I mark my line with a pencil, then I score over that line a few times with a sharp utility knife to cut through the top layer of wood veneer. I'm cutting against the grain of the veneer, which would normally leave a nasty, rough-looking edge, but by scoring through the top layer of the veneer and staying just a 32nd of an inch away from the scored line, the edge won't splinter. Now the cabinet is flat to the floor, tight to the wall, and most importantly, touching the wall at the top. I get the measurements for the sink drain and transfer them over to the back of the cabinet. Then, I drill the hole halfway through in the back and the rest of the way through in the front. If I drilled the hole from only one side, the plywood veneer would easily splinter and get torn. Now, I thread the water lines up through the bottom of the cabinet and push it into place. With my Wallabot, I scan the wall for studs and mark the locations on the cabinet. Then, I drill the holes with a wood drill bit, followed by a diamond drill bit to get through the tile. Now, I can permanently secure the cabinet to the wall with 3 screws. To finish up the water lines, I add 2 copper crimp rings, 2 quarter-turn shutoffs, and crimp them both onto the water lines. Now, it's time to work on the sink basin. For a watertight gasket, I roll out a snake of plumber's putty in my hands and apply it to the bottom of the faucet. I press the faucet down onto the sink, screw on the locking nuts, and tighten them down with a pair of pliers. I apply another snake of plumber's putty to the bottom of the pop-up flange and press it into the drain hole. From the backside, I screw the drain onto the flange and tighten down the locking nut with slip lock pliers. I remove the squeezed out putty, install a lift rod, and the pop-up stopper. On the back side, I insert the pivot rod into the drain and tighten down the nut. Next, the clevis strap gets inserted into the lift handle and onto the pivot rod. Then, I tighten down the thumb screw onto the lift handle and secure the clevis strap with a spring clip. Finally, I test the pop-up stopper to make sure everything works. It's a lot easier to install the flexible water lines now than after the sink basin is installed onto the cabinet. After screwing the water lines on by hand, I gently tighten them down with a crescent wrench. To secure the sink basin to the cabinet, I apply a thin bead of all-purpose construction adhesive to the perimeter. Then, I gently set the basin onto the cabinet and center it in place. For a watertight seal, I apply a thin bead of clear silicone caulking between the wall and the top of the backsplash. Back inside the cabinet, I attach the hot and cold water lines with a crescent wrench.
That's where I stopped last night, and I didn't finish the drain because I ran into a little problem and the hardware store was already closed. You can see these two pipes aren't connected. They're probably about 2.5 inches apart from each other. And the reason for that is this cabinet is too tall. I measured it and it comes up to 36 inches at the top. Now that's the height of a standard kitchen base cabinet, not one for a bathroom. Those are between 28 and 32 inches tall. I love this cabinet and I'm not going to get rid of it. So what I got to do is something with the plumbing. There is a fix with this problem, and this is just an extension pipe I got from the hardware store. So I'm just marking the tailpipe down from the sink now because I got to cut it so this will all fit together.
I quickly cut through the tailpipe with my oscillating saw. Then I remove any burrs with some sandpaper. The smoother the pipe is on the inside, the less of a chance the drain will get clogged. I slide on the nut, compression washer, tailpipe extension, and tighten it down. Then another nut and compression washer go on, and the P-trap gets pushed into place. Finally, I tighten down all the nuts at each connection, double checking each one to make sure they're all good and tight. I turn on the valve in the basement, along with the ones under the sink, and run the water for a few minutes. Then I carefully check each connection point along the path of the drain for any water that may have started leaking out. After everything checks good, I move on to the waterline connections at the bottom of the sink faucet. Everything seems good there, and I check the connections at the shutoff valves. No leaks again, but I'll check back in a few hours just to make sure. Now it's time to install the medicine cabinet. I start off with a plumb line that's centered with the electrical box for the light. Then I measure half the width of the medicine cabinet on each side of that line and draw 2 parallel lines from my marks. I draw a level line where I want the top of the cabinet to be, mark the length of the cabinet, and draw a level line at the bottom. With my oscillating saw, I easily cut out the hole in the drywall. This saw takes a little more time to cut than the rotozip, but it creates a lot less dust. I use a sharp utility knife to cut into the fiberglass insulation and pull it out with my hands. For people with sensitive skin, gloves should be worn to reduce the chance of itching. And always wear a dust mask or respirator. Before the drywall went up, I knew this medicine cabinet would land on one of the studs. Luckily, this is the end wall of the house, and it's not a load-bearing wall. Otherwise, a header and jack studs would have to be added before the cabinet could be installed. There's a couple of nails left behind that held on the 1-inch exterior sheeting. I bend them back and forth with locking pliers until they break off. This medicine cabinet is not as deep as the wall, so I have just enough room to add a 1-inch thick piece of foam board behind it to keep the wall a little more insulated. Now the medicine cabinet gets leveled and screwed into the wall with 4 2-inch wood screws. To finish it up, 2 adjustable shelves get set into place. On the light fixture, I start off by screwing the mounting bracket onto the workbox with 2 screws. Then I wrap the ground wire around the ground screw, tighten it up, and connect the ground wire from the light to the ground wire of the mounting bracket with a wire nut. The neutral and hot wires get connected with the wire nuts, and the fixture is mounted to the wall with 2 decorative nuts. Finally, all 3 shades get attached, and the light bulbs get screwed in. The last thing to do electrically is the GFCI outlet. The top side of the outlet is the line side, where the wires from the GFCI breaker in the basement come from. The bottom side of this outlet is the load side, where any outlets connected in are protected by this outlet. The outlet on the other side of the bathroom, which is within 6 feet of a water source, is the only outlet under this protection and is labeled so with a sticker. Now, the outlet is screwed into place and finished off with a cover plate. I turn on the breaker, push the test button on the GFCI, and check with my non-contact voltage sensor to make sure both outlets are working just fine. Then, I turn on the light switch to make sure the fan and light fixture are working too.
Now it's time to work on the toilet. This is the same one that was here before I started the renovation, and I just gave it a really good scrub down, and look at it now. It looks brand new. So before I get this thing installed, I have to work on the water line that goes to it first. I should have done it when I was working on the water lines for the sink, because the water was already off to the house and I could have done all three of them at the same time, but I completely forgot about the last one. So let's go take care of it right now.
I shut the water off to the house again and depressurize the water line. Then I pop off the cap with the orange removal tool and a wrench. Next, I slide on the escutcheon and mark a measurement on the pipe at 1 1/4 inches. I cut the excess pipe off at the mark and slide on the push to connect shut-off valve. I intentionally left a space below the valve so I can slide on the orange removal tool in case the valve has to be replaced in the future. For now, to cover up the pipe, a matching sleeve provided by the manufacturer of the valve gets snapped on. Finally, I screw on the flexible water line and slide the closet bolts onto the toilet flange.
The next thing that goes on is the toilet ring. This is the wax type, and it's just a ring of wax over top of a plastic funnel. And I've been using these for years and have had no problem with them at all. Except about 5 years ago, some of the tenants started flushing things down the toilet that should never have been flushed. Mostly it was just kids' toys, but I saw a couple of disposable razors get stuck in there and also a pair of false teeth. I'm guessing they didn't want those back again. The problem with these is they are a one-time use only. So I was lifting toilets up every couple of months or so, and buying these all the time was getting pretty expensive. So I moved on to this type, and this is the wax-free type. So instead of wax on top, we have a foam rubber ring instead, and then the bottom is that same type of funnel. What I like about these is they are reusable, and they also install the same way as the other type.
I slip the ring over the closet bolts and center it onto the flange. Then I move the toilet over carefully, aligning the closet bolts up through the holes. First, the toilet cap base goes on, followed by a washer, and finally the nut. To make sure the toilet is evenly tightened down, I go back and forth, tightening the nuts an equal amount of turns on each side. Once I start feeling some resistance, I try rocking the toilet back and forth. If it doesn't move, I know I've tightened it down enough. Now I trim down the bolts with bolt cutters and pop on both of the toilet caps. The flexible water line gets screwed on, then the water gets turned on in the basement and at the toilet. The tank starts to fill up, while Caesar sneaks in for a quick drink. I think it's time to install the toilet seat now. The nuts on either side of the seat get tightened up with a crescent wrench, and finally, the tank lid gets set in place.
You can't have a toilet without toilet paper. This is the toilet paper holder that came with the house, and it's nice and all, but I found something a little bit better. I found a match set toilet paper holder and towel bar, and I think that's going to look a whole lot better.
I start off by aligning the template along the top edge of the tile to keep it level. Then, I press down the masking tape to hold it in place. With a 1/4 inch diamond drill bit, I drill out all 4 holes through the tile. Next, I insert the 4 wall anchors and lightly tap them flush to the wall with a hammer. Then, the left and right wall brackets get screwed to the wall. Now for the time-consuming task of attaching both of the roller holders to the wall brackets with an Allen wrench. And finally, the toilet paper roll holder. You know what? I should probably take the toilet paper off the other holder and put it on this one. Now, where did I put that? Uh-oh. Where's Caesar? Caesar? Did you take the roll of toilet paper? There's just a handful of things to finish up in here, like installing the matching towel bar, gluing the kick plate on the vanity, cleaning the cigarette tar off the bathroom fan cover and installing it, caulking the tile edge of the bathtub, along with the top of the shower surround walls, and finally, the doorstop.
Are you ready for the big finish? Come on in. That's it for this episode. Next time, it'll be in another room. And believe me, I can't wait because I feel like I've been in this room forever. After the outtakes, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. And if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe and that notification bell too. Caesar and I, we'll see you next time. Are you sure you don't want a bath? Welcome back. Thank you, Caesar. And this is the picture of Caesar's butt. I've got a plastic access panel, and then this is pretty nice. This is a pretty nice one. Oh my gosh! If I ever have to change out the entire valve, I can just shut the water off, unscrew these two unions. I can't see unions very well. And I take the factory edge and line that up with my mark, which I can't find right now. There it is. Okay. That's it for, hey, where'd you go? But the one tool I found that works the best is a pair of bolt cutters. What I didn't know, because there's always something going on. Hey, you are kind of in the way here. Shower door box, just to see what all there was. And you're kind of noisy. All right. Going over the instructions here just to see if there are anything. Bless you. So Caesar, are you ready for your bath now? Apparently that's a yes. So Caesar, would you like a shower or a bath? Okay, that answers that question. Well, I won't see him for a few hours. So let's work on the bathroom sink and you're right back again. Oh no. And I like it because it matched the floor and the walls pretty well. Something happened on the inside, I just forgot. All right. But the best part about it is the color. Is something. Now it's time to work on the sink. This is not the sink, this is the toilet. Now it's time to work on the toilet. This is the same one that was here before I started the renovation. All right. The next thing that goes on is the toilet ring. This is the wax-free type, and no, it's not. It's actually the wax type. And it's just a foam rubber ring instead of wax, and it's got a, I messed that